Hey everybody, what is up? It is Thursday. Could it be a Monster Workshop stream? Is it possible? It is possible. Yeah, I sort of fell off the face of the planet for a couple of months. I apologize. But I'm back and we're releasing podcast episodes and we are sort of back in business, at least for the foreseeable future. And that means we are here doing a stream. It is Thursday afternoon. We've not done one of these in a while. It might take a little bit to swing back up into it. But it's a pretty simple monster, so it shouldn't be too much work today. Although saying that, I'm now looking at what I've outlined, and I'm remembering how much work it might actually be. If you are tuning in for the first time, this is the Monster Workshop stream. It is a partner stream with a podcast that I produce called Monster of the Week, where each week we look at one monster in the 5th edition Monster Manual, and we kind of dissect it, both from its lore and its mechanics. This week on the podcast, we had a guest on, the inimitable Lex Olden, or Wizard with a Gun, or Call Me They on Twitter. They came onto the show, and we talked about the Hound, which is a monster that they picked. And it's a fun monster. It's a very flavorful monster, but does not get a lot of love in 5th edition. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the ideas that I brainstormed with Lex on the stream, and we're going to try to implement them into the Hellhound to make it a more fun monster to run at your table. So I have 3 main problems and 3 main solutions here, kind of synthesizing both mine and Alex's ideas from our stream, from our podcast that came out last week. We recorded that podcast like months ago, and I feel bad because poor Lex had to wait forever to hear the episode that they were on. But I am slow and bad at editing guest episodes. I want to do them, but I move at a glacial pace sometimes. I'm trying to be better about that. But let's talk about what the Hellhound actually is. Oop, well, I'm a little out of practice because I did not get my monster manual. Let me grab that really quick, and then we will jump back in. 1 second. Okay, back. Have monster manual. So I have it here, but just in case you want to look at any of the lore, the Hellhound is a medium fiend. It is axiomatically lawful evil in the lore, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. It is it's got 15 armor class, it's got 45 hit points, 50-foot speed. It has high strength, 17, got kind of like a slightly above average dex and con at 12 and 14, and then it's got 6 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 6 charisma. Something we'll talk about in just a second. It's got a +5 bonus to perception. It is immune to fire. It has dark vision 60 feet and passive perception of 15. It understands infernal, but it can't speak it. It's a CR3 monster. It has 2 abilities. It has keen hearing and smell. The Hound has advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on hearing or smell. And then it's got pack tactics. Basically, it has advantage on attack rolls against creatures that at least one of its allies are adjacent to. And then it has 2 actions. It's got a bite attack at a +5 that hits for 1d8 +3, and then 2d6 fire damage. And then it also has a fire breath power on a recharge 5/6. So it's a 15-foot cone, a DC 12 dexterity save, which is pretty low, but it's 6d6 fire damage on a failed save. Yeah, and that is the Hellhound. It's a pretty basic monster. It's basically a wolf with a fire breath attached to it and a fire immunity. Yeah, we're going to talk about the lore behind them first. That's kind of my first gripe. The bad news is that, like, they don't have any. There's basically no lore given for the Hellhound in 5th edition, beyond the fact that they are a hound from hell. There's not a lot of discussion of where they come from or how they fit in the sort of, like, infernal ecology or any of that, which I think is a shame. It's obviously one of those monsters that only kind of merits a single page in the monster manual, so it doesn't surprise me too much that they don't have a lot of lore, but to have no lore is pretty disappointing, especially considering the kinds of things that they do make space for in the entry. So I had an idea for what to do with the lore and how to give them a little bit of an origin that also hopefully helps answer some of the problems inherent with the concept of the Hellhound. Yeah, there's basically monstrous fire-breathing fiends that take the form of powerful dogs. Hellhounds are found on the battlefields of Acheron and throughout the lower planes. They're not actually limited to the layers of hell, but I think that's kind of like heavily implied. And they are lawful evil. They're described as being like smarter than mundane beasts, and they're good at following orders. But because they're evil, the only thing they want to do is kill, right? So Yeah, let's talk about that. Now, a hellhound is described as a fiend in the sense that it is a creature that comes from the lower planes. Now, I am kind of axiomatically opposed to having monsters with axiomatic alignments. I don't think it makes sense to say for 90% of monsters that, all uh, uh, gosh, let me think of an example. All Ankhegs are neutral evil or something like that, or all goblins are chaotic evil, right? That doesn't. If it's an intelligent creature, I don't think it makes any sense to say that it has a bonded alignment. With a few exceptions, I think that there are a couple of very inhuman, unnatural monsters that it makes more sense. My three categories, I guess four if you include Celestials, are Celestials, Fiends, Aberrations, and Undead. I think if it falls into one of those four, there is a higher chance, not a 100% chance, but a higher chance of having a creature whose alignment is sort of like axiomatically set. Like, I think it makes sense to have a Celestial trend towards good and a Fiend trend towards evil. Obviously, you can have exceptions there, but the concept of a Fiend is essentially this is a creature that is evil incarnate, right? It is evil personified, evil made manifest, because we're living in a world with the cosmology and with these other planes of existence. So by that token, I think that, I mean, obviously you can have exceptions to this, of course, even inside that. Like the notion of a neutral fiend or even a good aligned fiend, depending on the context. Like, sure, there's obviously always room for that. But those are the couple of monsters where I don't feel the same kind of like ickiness that I feel when I see something like a goblin or, even a mind flayer. Although a mind flayer, I guess, is an aberration, I think, because of the sort of core concept of the mind flayer. That one is a little bit more, yeah, I mean, they enslave people. But you can have mind flayers that don't do those things. Even a mind flayer, at least, is sort of an intelligent, free-willed creature. Now, inside that, though, with the fiends, I feel like the hellhound is a particularly unfortunate case because, if you're talking about, like, we talk about this on the podcast, if you're talking about, like, a spined devil or something like that, it's a very unnatural creature. It's hard to feel a lot of sympathy or pity for something like that, right? It's easy for you to get to, like, okay, this is an inhuman thing. If it's a dog, you are now kind of presented with this problem of, like, yeah, it's an evil dog, but it's still a dog, and that means you have to, like, attack it and deal damage to it. And it just gets to be a lot weirder in terms of its alignment. So my fix for both of these two problems is to say that hellhounds, because like they're kind of presented in the lore as being just like natural creatures that happen to live in the lower planes. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to say they're basically just like the native fauna of hell, then it gets even weirder because this is just an animal. Right, but it's not. It's got 6 intelligence. So it just kind of exists in this weird middle ground where you don't know exactly how to classify it. So my fix for this is to develop a new origin for the Hellhound that hopefully tries to both address the alignment thing, but then also allow them to still sort of be fiends. And my thinking is this, is that what if a Hellhound is a basically transformed devil, right? What if the concept here is that either as a reward or as a punishment, a devil, can be transformed into this, like, sort of fiendish, hellish beast, right? I could see a scenario whereby a lower level, especially, I think this works best for devils as opposed to fiends, because they do have this sort of hierarchy thing, and there's a lot of, like, bureaucracy. Like, the notion of sort of, like, a recruitment program for hellhounds, where, like, a higher level fiend needs more soldiers, and so goes amongst, the lemures and the quasits and the kind of lower level fiends, and promotes several of them and says, hey, if you serve me as a hellhound for X amount of time, then you can, like, get a jump up on the next thing. You can jump right from a lemure to a spined devil and skip the imp entirely, right? Like, the notion of, like, a rewards program or a loyalty program basically run by a fiend. So I think that's one option, right? Is the notion of a hellhound being a promoted lower devil that serves out a term as a hound, eternally loyal to its master, but then after a certain amount of time, you know, it reverts back into its demon form or devil form, or the opposite, or you know, like a devil that was higher level and then in some way disappointed or especially like betrayed their like immediate superior, right? Then they get transformed into a hellhound and sort of forced to serve that superior for, you know, a certain length of time, at which point they are either demoted back down or restored to their previous station. So the notion is that the hellhound is intelligent because it is actually an ordinary fiend that has been basically transformed into this form, almost like a polymorph, right? Cool, you will serve out this sentence as a hellhound. I like that because I think it implies A, the bureaucracy of hell, and B, then allows you to describe and characterize the hellhound as being more intelligent, but also being a proper fiend, and not just being like a cute dog that happens to live in hell. I think that's like the big issue with them and their design. So we'll talk about what that means exactly. On the podcast, Lex had an idea where they wanted to basically have these sort of like almost werewolf style like hybrid forms of a werewolf or of a hellhound, and like I think that's cool. It's hard to get there without doing a bunch of other design around like hellhound lycanthropy, but I think you could play with the notion of like a hellhound hybrid form with this kind of like demon or devil sort of like a punishment thing, right? That there's maybe an interstitial form, either maybe as they take enough damage they kind of like start to turn back into a fiend, or they get transformed into these like hybrid versions of hellhounds as opposed to like a proper dog version. So we might develop that if we have some time today as a shout out to Lex, but we'll see because we have a lot of other stuff to get through as well, but I wanted to start there. The second problem I have is it's a much simpler fix, and I just think mechanically the hellhound is a little bit underwhelming. There's not a lot going on here to really recommend them. They've got some stuff that I think is fine. Obviously it's cool to have pack tactics. It really suggests to you like how you're supposed to run them. Their bite and their fire breath are obviously both fine. Keen hearing and smell is an interesting one because they are described in previous editions as being able to see invisible creatures, which has always struck me as being kind of odd because I feel like sight, like the notion of them being guard dogs is cool, but the concept of like a dog with good vision always kind of struck me as being strange. So I like the idea of doing something called like blind scent, where the conceit is that like they can detect invisible creatures by scent, right, within a certain radius. So it wouldn't actually be blind sight, but it would essentially give them a blind sight power. They can still have keen hearing and smell for things beyond that, right? But I like the idea that their sense of smell is so heightened, because again, they're these supernatural dogs, that they can detect things, they can pinpoint things by scent alone. I had two other small things I wanted to add. I think you could do the wolf thing where their bite prones you. You know, it's a little bit riding on pack tactics, but wolves have the same thing, and like it's kind of just classically a dog power, right, in D&D, is you bite someone and kind of like shake them to the ground. And then lastly, there's like a whole paragraph in the monster manual about how when they die they like burn themselves out from the inside and they combust, and then there's no death burst power, which I think is kind of a shame. I could see if we want to do like the hybrid form that like, you know, maybe when they reach a certain damage threshold they sort of death burst and into sort of like their hybrid form, right? I think could be kind of cool. But I feel like they have to have something, like they're literally described as exploding when they die, then like maybe they should explode when they die. But those are pretty easy fixes. Like blind scent is the only one that might be a little tricky to like mechanize, but that's pretty easy to go in and add that stuff, so I'm not too worried about that one. And then last one, what I think is like the main workhorse for today is that I like the idea that hellhounds, right now they're kind of like vaguely defined as just sort of living in the lower planes, even in Acheron, which is like a lower plane, but it's neither in the abyss nor in the nine hells. I like the idea that they would have different ecologies in the different layers of hell, right? Each one of the nine hells has like a different subtle variety of hellhound, right? So like that I don't want to make a whole new monster for each one of them, but I think playing with the idea of, okay, what does a hellhound from Avernus look like? What does a hellhound from Dis look like? What does a hellhound from Stygia look like, right? Some of them are going to be more obvious than others. I was not familiar with all of the different levels of hell when I was like writing this up, and some of them, like I look at them and I really don't have a good hit. So we'll talk about it and see if we can think of anything cool. But that might take us a little while to get through. So those are the 3 things we're going to work on. I think we're going to start with part 2 and add the blind scent and the proning bite and the death burst, and then maybe we'll talk about the hybrid form, and then we'll go into kind of brainstorming the whatever sort of powers you would put in for these 9 particular types of Hellhound. Okay, so the first one's pretty simple. First things are pretty simple. We're going to add in blind scent and proning bite and a death burst. I'm using a website called TetraCube. They're really nice. They have these little like monster kind of stat block printers. I have not paid to say this. I just think TetraCube is a cool website. So we're going to skip blind scent for the moment. We're just going to start with a proning bite because that's a little easier to wrap our heads around. Let me see how the wolf is described here in the monster manual. If the target is a creature, it must succeed on a DC 13 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. Yeah, very simple. One little line, a line item added in there. Let's get it in right now under the bite. If the target is a creature, it must succeed on a DC 13 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. Cool. We love it. That was so easy. Let's put the death burst in. Okay, use preset. When the Hound dies, it explodes in a burst of fire. Each creature within 10 feet of it must make a DC 13 dexterity saving throw. And I think we can keep this relatively low. Let's say 2d6 fire damage on a failed save. Let's go 3. That's like half of a breath weapon. 3d6 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. I mean, I think, again, pretty simple stuff here. We're really not, reinventing the wheel. Let's talk about blind scent. So I want to see how exactly blind sense is worded in the monster manual, or blind sight is worded, because it's sort of it's one of those like bundled in powers that isn't actually defined anywhere outside of that. So let me look here. Challenge, skills, speed, senses, blind sight. A monster with blind sight can perceive its surroundings without relying on sight within a specific radius. Creatures without eyes, such as Grimlocks and Grey Oozes, typically have this special sense, as do creatures with echolocation or heightened senses, such as bats and true dragons. So let's go like this. Yeah, let's go. The Hellhound can perceive its surroundings by smell alone. Well, how do you say within its surroundings? Because you want to give it a certain distance. Okay. It can perceive. Because blind sight usually lets you like pinpoint creatures, right? If you're blinded. So I don't want to necessarily just give it blind sight. I feel like I like the idea of it being blind scent specifically. But it does have, yeah, you know what? I think this is too complicated. I think let's just give it blind sight out to a certain distance. Let's say like 30 feet of blind sight. But it's not blind beyond that radius. It just has like a good sense of smell. And we'll just keep keen hearing and smell. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Not a huge change. Great, okay. Excellent. This might go faster than I thought. So then let's shift over. So I have an idea for the hybrid thing. I wonder if that is the form of one of these. Maybe it's like the Nessian Hellhound can like achieve this sort of like hybrid form. Okay, cool. That stuff was pretty simple. Let's go into the kind of brainstorming powers for the Hellhounds at the various different levels. So one thing I would like to do is I like the idea that like maybe the generic Hellhound is a CR3, but there's basically like a set CR for the others. So we say maybe it's like CR5 if you're going to get specific. If you're going to have like an Avernian Hellhound is a CR5 and a Dissian Hellhound, I'm not sure. Phlegethon Hellhound, right? Stygian Hellhound. Some of them I don't know how to pronounce. The Malboge, I don't know how to pronounce that. Maladamine, Yeah, boy, some of these names, some of these levels of hell are like very Dante, right? Very Italian, and I don't know. Canian Hellhound, and a Nessian Hellhound. So let's talk about these different levels. So Avernus or Avernus is basically a blasted wasteland. It's sort of the battlefield of the Blood War is the primary thing going on there. The problem with a lot of these levels of hell is that like they do have a lot of redundancies, like thematically. But I think Avernus is kind of uniquely the one described as being like the battlefield plane, right? So it's almost like a Hound of War, right? Like kind of a thing. So if we're saying that it's CR5, let me put a little bullet point in here. They're all going to be CR5. And I don't want to necessarily go and stat them up. I just want to brainstorm like what are the palette swaps here for the Hellhound, right? Like what are we putting in here that makes them a little bit more unique? So like I could see changing the breath weapon is like an obvious one. There's a couple of them like Minoros being like an endless bog of vile pollution. Feels like, yeah, you do like a poison breath. On Stygia, you do a cold breath. Like those ones I think are pretty obvious. But I don't necessarily know that you always have to change the like elemental type of the breath weapon. You know what I mean? Like I feel like fire makes sense for a handful of these. So we don't necessarily have to swap that one out, but like what's sort of like I almost want like think about like Hounds of War have like a fear effect or like a some kind of a almost like a scavenger, like a carrion dog kind of a thing, right? Maybe this is harder than I thought to go through because I just don't know that much about these individual layers, and the layers are very very redundant. So I'm gonna look up Avernus here and see what I can find. Avernus. Primary battleground for the Blood War. Legions of devils march across its place. I mean, yeah, some kind of a thing where they're like they're battle dogs, right? Like battle hounds. Maybe they have like better armor. Yeah, armored hellhounds is cool. Ooh, we like that. Better armor, higher AC. That's cool. Largest layer Bator, one of the most traditionally infernal, blasted hellscape in the most literal sense. Rivers of lava, barren hills, low rocky mountains. Rubble covered the vast ashen plains of its charred wastes. Fireballs raced across the dark sky of Avernus, seemingly at random, and fell to the scorched earth, leaving smoking impact craters and burnt corpses in their wake. Roiling clouds of red and black flickered with orange flames, but the atmosphere had neither sun nor stars, only a constant blood-red light that diffused to the air. Blood, as it would happen, was the leitmotif of Avernus. It was where the river of blood ran through Bator. Ooh, that's interesting. Practically all the plain was bathed in a coat of blood and covered with bones and gore, whether devilish, demonic, or otherwise, acting as a grim reminder of the regular bloodshed that marked an average day in Avernus. Something with blood is interesting. Maybe they have like a blood. Ooh, what's that thing that's the Sahuagin have? Like a blood frenzy? Yeah, more powerful when bloodied. When bloodied, more deadly against bloodied enemies. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's plenty for the Avernus one. Cool. Let's talk about Dis. Dis is like a city. So my understanding of Dis is that the plane is basically empty, but there's the big iron city of Dis in the center of it, right? The second layer, so it's almost like an urban dog. Maybe they have like a good tracking power or something. Despite being potentially infinite, the city of Dis always felt crowded and oppressive to everyone inside. Oh, okay, I misunderstood. This one says it was almost entirely covered by the city of the same name that stood in a valley surrounded by a ring of spiked mountains. Okay, so yeah, it's a large city. Whatever. Was made of red-hot iron. Every wall and cobblestone burned to the touch. So, I think fire still makes sense here. I think most of them should still have a fire breath. Someone who managed to leave the city could walk away from it. Trade. Personal Fortress of Despater is there. Not tons of information.
The streets of Dis were always crowded with parading devil nobles and workers that constantly remodeled the city at Disbader's behest. Underground denizens were filled with petitioners, prisoners of the Blood War, and kidnapped mortals from the Prime Material Plane. Tortured screams. Yeah, some kind of a like a police dog, essentially, right? Like a Paw Patrol type thing. But you know what I mean? Almost like a canine unit. Maybe they're good at tracking people down.
So they're CR5 as well, right? Like, something with, like, I know it's basically the same thing as, like, better armor, but if it's, like, the Iron City, then it feels like them having, maybe they have, like, an iron, like, bite, like a lock, ooh, yeah, like a locking jaw. Better for capturing perps, right? And we say that they have, like, a heightened tracking ability. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Okay, cool. And then Minoros. This is sort of like the vile. This is the bog one, which I think is easier to understand. Minoros. Okay. Minoros is described as the third layer of the Nine Hells, endlessly polluted swamp, constantly battered by winds, acid rain, and hail, and pinpointed with various cyclopean cities of carved stone. Single stinking bog, constant mix of rain and sleet. Poison or acid makes more sense. City of Minoros, largest settlement, constantly sinking into the swamp. Expeditions of petitioners and slaves were sent periodically to fetch volcanic rock to shore the city up. It's interesting. Let's see. Oh, that's cool. There's a city called Jangling, like Hitter, Hiter. Is a city suspended by chains from the bottom of Dis, the second layer. That's really cool. Okay. Well, I think acid makes sense, right? I mean, like an acid breath, I don't think is too hard to acid breath. And I wonder if the acid breath and bite, right? And bite. And I almost wonder if they can, like... Lex talked about in the stream about them being able to, like, basically swim up through lava, which I think is cool, if they have, like, a fire immunity. I'm trying to think if there's, like, that they can sort of turn into ooze, or they can, you know, if they have some other function. Like, again, what's their purpose in Minoros? Like, they feel a little bit more wild if it's just, like, a bog, right? Like, there aren't immediately, like, purposes to which they could be put, you know? Maybe they're stealthier, like they're better at hiding. I kind of think that's cool. Stealthier. Better at ambushing prey. Cool. Phlegathos, I think it's the fire one, so they're just like super fire, you know? I think that's, we can like increase damage on bite, increase fire damage on bite and breath weapon, right? They're sort of supercharged. Fire on bite and breath weapon. There was the 4th edition version of the Hellhound had a cool thing where they were basically, rather than burning internally, they sort of burned on the outside, right? So I think you could do something like that where they have like a heat aura and like hitting them in melee damages you, right? Something like that I think is kind of neat. Okay, that's an easy one. Hold on, I got my lich here still. Let me push this out. One moment. I'm gonna insert a break here. Google Docs. Okay. So Stygia is a. So here's the bit of a problem is that we have Stygia and Cania are both like basically like ice planes, right? And so you can't really. I mean, you could do 2 separate ice ones, but it feels like it's you're going to be treading over the same ground, even though we do have multiple fire ones. Like I like Phlegathos as the super fire one, right? Oop, I googled Hellhound instead of Stygia. But Stygia, my understanding of Stygia is that it's almost more like oceanic. That it's like a think of I think it's Ganymede, right? Where it's like it's a bottomless ocean with like a layer of ice on the top.
So you could do like an aquatic one. Let's see. Vast frozen sea dominated by ice floes and icebergs. A vast ocean of salt water that was almost completely frozen. Its surface was almost entirely covered in ice floes and icebergs. The only open body of water was the Styx, which kept its dark, oily water separated from the salt water and meandered through the layer as if it were crossing a plain. That's cool. Some of the large ice floes are large enough to support cities, blah, blah, blah. The sky of Stygia was in a state of perpetual twilight and constantly struck by lightning. Stygia was unique among the layers of Bator in that it was almost entirely untamed and wild, with no significant part of its territory devoted to any particular purpose. Interesting. For that reason, the wilderness was inhabited by several aggressive creatures such as direwolves, frostworms, krakens, mammoths, polar bears, sharks, and remorazes, which were used as practice for devils and military training. Huh. Yeah, Levistus is the lord there. Was kept prisoner deep in a large iceberg known as the Tomb of Levistus. Okay. Yeah. So this is the problem, right? Is that like you can't really do like I guess you could do like an aquatic one, but there's something about like a swimming hellhound that feels a little silly. Let me look at Cania and see what the difference is. Obviously, that's jumping ahead a little bit, but I don't want to like repeat myself essentially. Cania is the 8th level, relentless realm of seemingly living cold. Marked by moving glaciers and icebergs that drifted as fast as a running person, constantly colliding with one another and with surrounding mountains. Snow avalanches were common and violent. The weather was dominated by snowstorms that howled with incessant winds. Substantially colder than Stygia. Minus 60 degrees. Although they have like Fahrenheit and Celsius on here. It could quickly penetrate non-magical clothing, freezing unprotected creatures within minutes, and killing even those wearing gear designed to withstand cold temperatures in hours. Unsheltered creatures ran a constant risk of freezing to death. Preserved corpses, blah, blah, blah. Controlled by spies. Who's in charge down here? Mephistopheles, Lord of the Eighth. Okay. Yeah, it just feels random that there's 2 ice ones. And there's like not a lot of other interesting things happening in Cania. Like it's allegedly like the notion of like all the ice like constantly in motion is interesting. So yeah, it does feel like Stygia should be the aquatic one and that Cania should be the cold one, right? But it would like Stygia would still have to be cold. So you know, cold immunity, presumably change bite to cold damage, bite and breath to cold damage. They have a swim speed. What's like another thing that they could do? Like the notion of them being in the wild is interesting. Like I almost wonder if there's like a howl power or something like that. But I feel like that again, that could kind of go anywhere, you know, like baying at the moon sort of a vibe. I'm trying to think what makes the I mean, you could just you could do it this way. If you say that Stygia is the cold one, right, and they give them a swim speed, and then Cania is to boy, how do I do this analogy? The standard Hellhound is to Phlegethos as the Stygian Hellhound is to the Canian Hellhound, right? That like Cania is just basically a souped up version of the Stygian Hellhound. I kind of think that works. Yeah, because it's simple then. All right, cool. Cavernhorn Incline. Okay, so Malboge or whatever. I don't know how on earth you pronounce this one. But this is the weirdest one, I think, of all of them. I mean, I think they kind of get worse and worse from here on out, right? Like, I feel like all the good ideas are early. But let me pull up this one because it's dumb and bad, and we don't care for it. Avernus, Dis, Phlegethos, Stygia. So it's Malbolge, which again I think is a reference to Dante, but I don't know how to pronounce it because I don't speak Italian, so that's a bit of a problem for me. As a Great Wheel layer, Malboge was a gargantuan tumble of angular black stone blocks, each block ranging in size from a small city to a large metropolis. which, okay, that formed a pile hundreds of miles/kilometers thick. The randomly tilted and ill-fitting blocks were honeycombed with angular passages and caverns, causing non-flying travelers to frequently need mountaineering skills and risk avalanches. Stinking clouds of vapor rose up from the depths and lit the sky with the color of blood. So it's like kind of an Earth-themed one, ostensibly, but it's so strange in its design that it's all these like blocks kind of like slammed together, rather than just like it's a cavern or it's like all underground tunnels. It's like this very strange, thing. So like I think functionally you do like a subterranean hellhound, right? Like maybe you specifically say that they're blind, right? Like eyeless and with further blind sight. I could see them having like a darkness power, or like, ooh, what if they have like spider climb? That's pretty spooky, right? Kind of crawling around on the ceiling. I like the idea that not that they're eyeless, is that like they have many eyes, but all are blind. That's spooky. Increase their blind sight. Spider climb is cool. I mean, stealth also kind of makes sense here. Increase blind sight. It feels like maybe we give these ones poison. These are almost like spider. Yeah, poison breath and poison bite. I mean, it's basically a spider. Like, it's got spider climb, poison breath, and a poison bite. Like, how is that a dog at that point? You know what I mean? But whatever. Maybe that's the point, is that it's like a little spookier. That it's kind of like a strange mix of the two. Okay, we're moving quick. We're gonna move on to Maladomini. Okay, so the next one is Maladomini, and that's like bad place to live is what it sounds like in Latin, right? Maladomini. It's a 7th layer, and it's another weird one that doesn't have like a great. It's described as an endless field of ruined and decaying cities. Oh, hey, what's up, Castle Red Fox? We are just about wrapping up here. This is a quick one today. Oh God, I keep accidentally hitting this ad. Stupid ad. So it's described as being dotted with abandoned cities that served as shelters and hideouts for runaway petitioners, deserters, criminals, and lost creatures from other planes. Between cities, the layer was marked by surface mines, deforested areas, and clogged canals. So, like, the concept is interesting, that it's like ruins and, sort of like the collapse of civilizations. But there's not a lot of, like, interesting, like, I mean, maybe you do like a I guess it's kind of poisony, but, like, the idea of, like, a vapor hound is sort of interesting, right? Like, that maybe they have, like, a gaseous power. That's kind of cool, like almost a pollution hound. CR for poison. I guess it's back to poison breath and poison bite. But like a gash, like what if they're like incorporeal? I think that's cool. Incorporeal. Sort of a gaseous form. But it's back to poison breath again. The Malaboche one I don't love. Like, I like them being blind. I think spider climb is okay, but I'm not a big fan of the poison breath and the poison bite. But fire also feels wrong down there. You know what I mean? Maybe, ooh, what if it's like a thunder thing? What if it's like, this is the howl, right? They have like echolocation. Echolocation. They have like sonic power, essentially, right? That makes more sense. Cool, I like that. So this one can be incorporeal and have sort of a gaseous form. And they're these like vapor hounds, right? This like toxic gas kind of a vibe. Okay, cool. All right, and then Cania is pretty simple, because Cania we can just say, once again, CR5. And it's, I mean, maybe we say the Phlegethos one is, yeah, no, this is fine. I wonder if we increase the CR, if we say this is CR7. Echolocation is cool. I agree, Castle Red Fox. So these guys are just like super cold. So you increase, so you basically change the cold, you keep all of this, right? The cold immunity and stuff. But then you increase damage on
bite and breath. You add a... you had like a cold aura. Hitting them in melee damages you with cold. Yeah, and it's basically just like a souped up version of the Phlegethos one. Yeah, I think that's cool. I'm into that. And then let's look at Nessus. So I think this is the one that I like the notion of the hybrid. This is the one that we might stop and actually like look at. So let's make them even higher level still, CR9. And I like the notion of the Nessus, or the Nessian Hellhound being almost more like a werewolf, right? Where it has sort of like a shape change power. Maybe we'll stop and do this one, because again, I want to throw a bone to Lex and their love of, I believe, Canamorph is the term, which again, big K, Applegate vibes. But the notion of them basically having like two forms, the Hound form and the hybrid form. I'm gonna look up the lycanthropes here and just get a sense of like what that means. Like a lycanthrope basically just has a it's just claw and bite attack, right? But I feel like you could do a cool thing. Maybe they even have like a fun disease similar to lycanthropy, right? Ooh, that's cool. What if like you get bit by one of these Nessian hellhounds and it turns you into a hellhound? You know, that's cool. A bite that curses you to burn up from the inside. A creature that dies this way turns into a hellhound loyal to Asmodeus. Yeah, I like that. I think that's cool. Let's look at the werewolf. The werewolf says shape changer, keen hearing and smell. It's got multi-attack, humanoid or hybrid form only. Like the notion of them like in their hybrid forms, what does that grant you? Like I guess it gets you claws, right? But like being a hybrid doesn't really do a lot for you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I guess you get extra attacks, but I almost want them to have like weapons, or like, you know, they can like conjure like fire blades or something like that. Like in hybrid form, they make fire blades that they can wield. Oh, I guess that's basically the same thing as claws. They don't need that. I wonder if they can like spit fire, like fireballs. Yeah. They gain the hurl flame power. Yeah, that's cool. Hurl flame attack. Yeah, I think that's cool. And I think we can give them some of the like Phlegethos stuff. We can maybe even give them the like immunity to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. Magical attacks, right? Hurl flame. Yeah, I think that's cool. I'm into that. Okay, so let's go over here. First of all, let me save this version of the Hellhound, just so we have it. And then let's make the Nessian Hellhound. So first things first, we're going to improve the challenge rating. This is now a CR9 monster. Nessian Hellhound. Medium size, I think, is still good. It's still a fiend. All that is still good. What is a good CR9 monster, though, is my question. For, like, rough hit points. Let's look. Not the Kraken. That's a CR23. CR9. Who's 9? Grells are not 9. Griffins are not 9. Hags are not 9. Who is a good... Hydra's like 8. That's not bad. Yes, but you also have the problem of them, like, if they have immunity to damage, not from a magical weapon. I mean, I feel like chances are good they're going to have a magical weapon, so let's not reduce that too much. Let's maybe say that they have... Well, they have 7 hit dice right now. Let's double that and see what that gives us. That gives us 90 hit points. Yeah, let's go to 15 hit dice. So they're going to have like around 100. 97 hit points. I think that's pretty good. Okay, cool. Let's go back to the werewolf, because I'm mainly looking at it for kind of the formatting. And then we can go from there. Okay. So speed is 30 feet, I think. And then you custom speed. Okay, so it's 30 feet and then 50 feet in Hound form. Okay. So yes, they have high strength. Let's improve the strength up to 18. The dexterity, I think we can also bump to 14, and the con can go to 16. I like the idea that these guys are more intelligent. Maybe say they have 8 intelligence. Keep all that and give them 8 charisma as well. They're still sort of hounds, but I don't think... Let's give them stealth just for funsies. No condition immunities, I don't think. Well, they're fiends. I'm trying to think, like... Let's give them the poison immunity, right? That fiends tend to have. And then let's also give them non-magical attacks and make them immune to those. They can speak Infernal because they're hybrids, so they can speak it. I'm gonna give them Wisdom and Charisma proficiency, I think, because they have penalties in there. Although you kind of want them to have, yeah, you kind of want them to have weaknesses, so never mind. Okay, so they have about 112 hit points, 30 feet or 50 foot. Good perception, good stealth. Let's pump their blind sight out to like 50 feet, and their dark vision out to 120. I also want to give them devil's sight. Yeah, let's look at some devils, because these are basically devils. Devils. Dragons. Here we go. Devils do have saving throw bonuses. Even the Bone Devil, which is like roughly around their level. Do they all have the silver thing? Ooh, they have a silvered thing. Let's do that. Rather than yeah, let's do immunity to non-silvered ones. That's cool. Yeah, let's give them some saving throws. Why not? Let's see. Wisdom, I like. Let's do wisdom, strength, and wisdom. I think it's too much to do both. Yeah, cool. We love it. Sweet. So I think Death Burst is still good, but we'll just increase the amount that they explode. What's the DC for that? So it's based on presumably their con, which is +3. So 7 + 8 is DC 15 dexterity saving throw. And let's go right to 6d6 fire damage on a failed save. Yeah, that seems good to me. What else do we want to? We want to give him Devil's Sight. Use presets. Doesn't impede the Hound's dark vision. That is ability, Devil's Sight. I think they can keep Pack Tactics. That's fine. All that stuff seems good. We wanted to give them. I'm trying to think if there's any other like werewolf stuff. Let me go back and look. I mean, I think that's basically that, and then just their actions being different. So they have like hurl flame and stuff. So let me go to lycanthrope. Sorry for all the flipping back and forth today, y'all. Okay. Oh right, shape changer. Yeah, I was like, I knew I'm missing a big one. Actually, I think we can get the preset for shape changer. Shape changer, use preset. The Hound can use its action to polymorph into a Hound Devil hybrid, or back into its true form. Its statistics, other than its size, which is a hellhound, which is that of a hellhound. Its statistics, other than its size, are the same in each form. Any equipment it is wearing or carrying isn't transformed. It reverts to its true form if it dies. Yeah, that's all good. Okay, that's an ability. And then let's go in here and let's go multi-attack for sure. Multi-attack. Humanoid or devil form only. Well, hybrid form only. Hybrid form. The Hound makes 2 attacks. One with its bite and one with its claws. If it's in its hybrid form, it can also... Oh, there's a term for Hurl Flame. Gosh, I'm constantly flipping. I need to have a bookmark for these devils. Who can use Hurl Flame? You can. It can use Hurl Flame in place of any melee attack. Okay. It can use Hurl Flame in place of any melee attack. Okay, cool. That's an action. So let me put Hurl Flame in there. Let's see. This is hybrid form. So ranged attack. Oh, sure. Ranged spell attack. Based on, wisdom? Feels like it should be dexterity. Yeah, interesting. We'll do wisdom. Hurl Flame. Wisdom attack to hit. What is the range on Hurl Flame here? 150 feet. Yikes. One target. Hits for 4d6 fire damage. Just copying this off the Horned Devil, which is roughly the same power. Fire damage. Let's say 3d6, just because it's 2 down. Okay, that's an action. Oh, this Hurl Flame is hybrid form. Okay. Although I guess that would be down. Yeah, okay. And then let's go back to Lycanthrope. I just want to get the specific wording here on like the bite and the claws and everything. Then I think we can call it for today. Yeah, about an hour. That's not too bad for a stream. Not too bad at all. Okay. So bite could be either. Let's actually just bring it in here. The damage is the question, right? So it would be, what's its attack bonus? 4 plus strength is 7. So plus 7, yeah, plus 7 to hit. Reach 5 feet, 1 target. Hits for 1d8 plus 4 piercing. Plus, let's go to, what do we think? 3d6 fire? Yeah, I think that's fine. Plus 3d6 fire damage. Rather than pulling them to the ground, I think we do a thing. If the target is a humanoid, it must succeed on a DC, what do we think? 13, 14, DC 14 Constitution saving throw. Or be cursed. I think it's maybe a charisma saving throw with, yeah, what do you call it? What do you call the disease? Because it's a curse, right? It's not actually a disease. With like Hound's Bane or something like that, right? Like Hellfire. Ooh, yeah, what if it's that? Be marked with Hellfire, and then the conceit is that like a character marked with Hellfire who dies turns into a Hellhound. Yeah, I think that's cool. Or we curse with Hellfire. Okay. Let's go DC 15, just to be clearer. That's the bite. Add action. We love it. And then claws, and that's hybrid form specifically. Hybrid form. Oh, I gotta stop doing that. It's a melee weapon attack. Use preset. Claws. Hybrid form. Now this doesn't infect you. This is just a 5-foot reach. Plus 4 to hit, or plus whatever to hit. Yep. Hits for, what do we think? This is 2d4 strength slashing damage plus 2d4, maybe 3d4 fire damage. Yeah, I like that. Okay. That's your action, and then you have Hurl Flame as well and Fire Breath. Now let's up the Fire Breath here.
Let's say it's a 30-foot cone, DC 15 dexterity saving throw, or take, what do we think? 8d6? I think 12d6 is a lot. Let's go 8d6, like a fireball. Yeah, okay. Then that's an action. Okay, 2 columns on that. Death burst, keen hearing and smell. Yeah. Nessie and Hellhound. We love it. Let me make sure that things are in the right order. Death burst would come alphabetically before that. That's all good. Oh, I want hurl flame further down, like in between claws and fire breath. Yeah, there you go. Cool. Yeah, we did it. The Nessie and Hellhound. Nice. Okay, let me save that. Now, if you are a patron of mine, you are in luck because you will hopefully in the next couple of weeks see not only the improved Hellhound and the Nessian Hellhound we just made, but also versions of all 8 of these other Hellhounds ready for your use on our Patreon. You can find links to the Patreon down below in the description of this video. So go ahead and check that out. There's lots of other cool stuff there. I'm kind of winding back into content creating, so there should be plenty of things for you to enjoy on that side. But unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today for our stream. It was a pretty quick one. Glad we got through the Hellhound in under an hour. It's also probably not bad to kind of like pace myself as I'm swinging back into doing more content. Thanks to Joy for coming out and hanging with me at the very end there. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you're watching this on VOD, go ahead and click the little subscribe button and the bell to get notified when I go live. You can find me on Twitter for as long as Twitter remains a thing, as well as on Discord, as well as on Patreon. All the links, as I said, are down below. We should be back possibly on Saturday to stream some Sea of Thieves. That'll be over on my Twitch page. I'll be sure to tweet all about it. But until then, thank you so much for coming. And as always, let me see if I can remember how to sign off here. And as always, happy adventuring.